Good morning, America. Tariff fallout. Americans set to feel the impacts of the new taxes on imports with another round coming this week. President Trump promising an economic revolution, calling on Americans to hang tough. How soon you'll see the effects from produce to apparel to cars, and the advice on steps to take and avoid. Plus the protests across the country against Trump administration policies.
Storm disaster zone. Tornadoes tearing apart homes in the south, while more than a foot of rain sends rivers over their banks.
There goes a house.
Rescuers wading through floodwaters, pulling people from their cars. Tomorrow on when this unrelenting rain will end.
Priest murder mystery. A Kansas reverend shot to death on church grounds as authorities arrest a man claiming he plotted the whole thing. The unanswered questions this morning.
No coverage. The Trump administration deciding Medicaid and Medicare for now will not cover some popular drugs to help people lose weight, a decision that could affect millions of Americans.
White Lotus finale. Fans in a frenzy for tonight's wrap-up of season 3.
I think he's dangerous.
I mean, he killed his wife.
Will they get the answers they want?
I'm on top of the world, I'm on top of the world,
And March Madness championships. The matchups now set after Houston's epic comeback.
Incredible rally.
To now face the Florida Gators.
Return to national prominence for the Gators.
Highlights of all the action with the women's champs to be crowned tonight.
I'm on top of the world.
Live from ABC News in New York, this is Good Morning America.
A little inspirational, really, on a Sunday. Yeah, we're on top of the world. Why not? And some folks in March Madness are on
Certainly
top of the world.
are.
Yes, they are. Big games overnight. The men's final is now set this morning, and the women's championship just hours away. We've got you covered with all the highlights and what to expect with ESPN's Andrea Carter later on.
Oh, that's going to be so good.
Yeah.
It's going to be so great to talk to her, watch those games, and we'll break down the complicated situation about those medications like Zepbound and Wegovy that will not be covered by Medicare and Medicaid to treat obesity after all, at least for now.
An important story there, but we do begin here with President Trump's trade war. The president now calling it an economic revolution, with more tariffs due to take effect this week. ABC's Jay O'Brien is in Washington following all of the latest developments overnight. Good morning, Jay.
Good morning, Gio. A new round of President Trump's tariffs set to take effect in just days as businesses and consumers grapple with the latest tariffs that snapped into place this weekend.
This morning, growing economic anxiety days away from a new round of President Trump's stiffer trade tariffs, expected to increase the cost of everything from clothes to electronics to alcohol. This week, individual targeted tariffs scheduled to hit more than 50 countries. Goods from China facing a new 34% tariff, Vietnam 46%, and the European Union slapped with a 20% tariff. All in addition to 10% across-the-board tariffs snapping into place yesterday on hundreds of countries and nearly all goods entering the U.S. And this morning, President Trump insisting tariffs will spark an economic revolution, driving businesses and jobs back home, and calling on Americans to hang tough. It won't be easy, but the end result will be historic. As economists warn U.S. consumers should brace for higher prices, uncertainty for what's to come.
I think it's still a little uncertain of exactly how that's all going to shake out.
The British automaker behind Jaguar and Land Rover announcing it's pausing all U.S. shipments after recent vehicle tariffs. And with fears of a trade war intensifying, Trump spending the weekend golfing in Florida. In an official statement, the White House celebrating the president making it to today's finals in his senior club championship. After stocks plummeted last week, the architect of Trump's trade policy, White House advisor Peter Navarro, downplaying concerns of a sell-off.
We're in a situation where we're simply rebalancing and restructuring. I can guarantee you that the market will find its bottom, that we will have the Dow hit 50,000 easily during the Trump second term.
The president expected to return here to Washington tonight. Congressional Republicans and allies of the president continue to say that they believe these tariffs are a negotiating tactic to get better trade deals, but Trump recently insisting that they are, quote, here to stay. Janae.
All right, Jay, thank you so much. And now to the protest happening nationwide this weekend over, amongst other things, those tariffs, the economy, as well as massive government job cuts and human rights. ABC's Christian Cordero is in Washington, where one of the largest protests happened. Good morning, Christian.
Hey, Janae, good morning. So through every move, the administration has said it is acting on a mandate from the American people. Well, hundreds of thousands of people took to streets yesterday to have their voices heard.
This morning, chants from coast to coast after Saturday's hands-off protest drew in more than 1 million people, organizers say, across some 1,200 rallies in San Francisco and Seattle, from Los Angeles and Lincoln, Detroit to Denver, and right here in Washington, D.C., where an estimated 100,000 people filled the National Mall.
We all have something that we're upset about, and they're all important things.
Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency has spent weeks making major cuts to the federal workforce with the goal of shrinking the government and saving billions in federal funds. His latest target, the Peace Corps. Sources tell ABC News Doge members entered Peace Corps headquarters Friday to begin a review of their system. Amid the Doge cuts, unemployment in March increased, the economic uncertainty keeping people like Stan Prusik up at night.
47 years of work, 47 years of savings. And, I just started Social Security, and, I'd like to enjoy, it's time to me to enjoy life.
The protest, a stern message to lawmakers across party lines.
We are standing up and saying in this moment we will organize and mobilize, and we are ready. 2 years, not 4. 2 years. We get to decide who is in Congress.
Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell of California among those to rally.
What's the plan?
We have to show fight. We have to fight on the inside as loudly as folks here are fighting on the outside. Otherwise, they'll lose hope.
Now, in the slashing of the federal workforce, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said some of his department's programs would soon be reinstated after they were cut by mistake. But Whit, Kennedy is walking back previous comments about how many jobs would return, leaving that question still unclear.
All right, Christian Cordero, thank you. Let's bring in ABC News political director Avery Harper. Avery, good morning to you. It's always great to have you. So we know more tariffs are due to go into effect this week. Should we expect President Trump to stay the course here, or could there be some kind of last-minute change?
Listen, the president is really dug in on this, despite the huge dip that we've seen in the stock market, the warnings of economists, and even concerns from Republicans. He really believes that there's going to be some short-term economic pain on the part of Americans and that there's going to be some sort of long-term benefit. But that is a huge bet. It is not a sure thing. It's really something that he promised on the campaign trail to bring down the prices of goods. And if we see prices rise astronomically because of some of these tariffs, that could spell trouble for Republicans as we near midterms. And we know that from recent polling, it suggests that tariffs are not a popular policy.
So that leads to this next question here, because what about the protests and the opposition that we've seen to some of the Trump administration policies? I mean, how much of a concern do you think that is right now for Republicans?
Listen, it could be a concern as we near midterms. You heard some of the voters in that piece just yesterday. We saw thousands of folks across the country, and not just in places where folks were voting and supporting for Democrats, but also in some really red areas of the country as well. Not only that, but we saw former President Barack Obama come out and speak critically about the president. We saw Vice President Kamala Harris do the same thing. And of course, we saw that 25-hour-long speech from Cory Booker, that there has been a groundswell of support for him, at least in some Democratic circles. I spoke with some of the organizers of those protests, and they acknowledged that in order for them to affect change, there has to be some sort of sustained movement. It can't just be one day of protests. But I know that Democrats are going to be looking to rally support from folks who were out in the streets yesterday in hopes of reclaiming some power come midterm.
Avery Harper, as always, we really appreciate it. Thanks so much. And be sure to tune in to This Week later on this morning. George Stephanopoulos interviews top White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett. Plus, Democratic Senator Cory Booker talks about his record-breaking speech in the Senate and how Democrats are responding to the president's sweeping tariffs. Gio?
Okay, Whit, now to the punishing series of powerful and deadly storms in the south. More than a foot of rain has fallen in some areas, and it's not quite over just yet. Morgan Norwood is live in Little Rock now with the latest. Good morning, Morgan.
Gio, good morning. Even though the rain has let up a bit here in Little Rock, the Arkansas River is still rising and could hit flood stage this week. Across the Mid-South and the Midwest, at least 18 river gauges at major flood stage. And this morning, it's threatening the communities already reeling. This morning, that unrelenting once-in-a-generation storm blamed for the deaths of at least 11 people, including a 16-year-old firefighter in Missouri and a vehicle crash as he responded to a reported water rescue. This week, 91 tornadoes reported in 10 states, from Kansas to Ohio. In Mississippi, residents say emergency text warnings gave them just seconds to escape.
Without it, my daughter and my grandson would have been in that room right there where there's no wall anymore.
In Grand Saline, Texas, this man sheltering in his bathroom while the wall of his bedroom was ripped off.
When that wall come off, it just boom, shook the whole house.
In Nashville, Tennessee, strong winds and torrential rain prompting residents to seek safety in community shelters.
It's just scary of the devastation in so many different places.
Arkansas taking on more than a foot of rain, livestock trudging through flooded out farms in Sheridan. Force responders out in full force, wading through floodwaters and pulling people from cars in Texarkana.
It was floating in the water and you just didn't want to go.
Parts of Kentucky also buried beneath the floodwaters. This home floating down the river, now a pile of debris. And we know the toll of this storm has been incredibly tragic. Here in Arkansas, officials say a 5-year-old died when a tree fell on their home. And across the storm zone this morning, we're learning 190,000 customers still without power, Gio.
Oh, that 5-year-old, so sad. All right, Morgan, thank you so much. Let's bring in Samara now, because the big question this morning, Samara, is when does this end?
Yeah, Gio. Well, the good news is for the Mississippi Valley, it's finally ending. This stalled front is going to begin to move. Rain right now continuing to fall, though, for parts of northern Mississippi. We're not out of the wood yet. Remember, even when it stops raining, we still experience flooding as those bankments continue to overflow. Flash flood warning for parts of Nashville. Memphis receiving their wettest day in April on record just yesterday. Tornado watches in central Alabama. Here's a look at where the rain is headed next. We do have a concern for flooding in central Alabama between Birmingham and Montgomery, 3 to 5+ inches, level 3 out of 4 when it comes to excessive rainfall. And then there's that threat for severe weather. Severe weather riding through the south as we head through the next 2 days. Today along I-20 and I-10 in Florida, Alabama, and parts of western Georgia. Tomorrow, kicking off the work week in cities like Savannah, Tallahassee. It's there where we could see damaging winds and maybe even a few tornadoes. Janae?
Tomorrow we'll be watching that. Now to an arrest in the killing of a Catholic priest in Kansas. Authorities arriving on church grounds, discovering the priest suffering from gunshot wounds. He later died at the hospital. ABC's Ike Ajachi is here with new details. And Ike, the suspect allegedly said he plotted the whole thing.
That's right. Good morning, Janae. Right now, prosecutors are trying to determine the motive behind this senseless act of violence that left the community without its cherished pastor of the last 15 years.
This morning, an urgent search for answers after a beloved Kansas priest was shot dead in broad daylight on church grounds.
There simply are no words. Our hearts are just broken.
Deputies arriving on scene, finding 57-year-old Arul Karasala outside the church residence Thursday afternoon, suffering from several gunshot wounds. A bullet hole seen here piercing the glass of the rectory. Karasala rushed to a local hospital where he later died from his injuries. Shortly after, authorities arresting 66-year-old Gary Hermesh, appearing in court Friday, shackled in a wheelchair, charged with first-degree murder. Prosecutors believe the crime was committed intentionally and with premeditation, but haven't stated why.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Parishioners gathering to pray just hours after the killing.
He was a wonderful person. He was very personable, and he did a great job.
Now, according to the Kansas Bureau of Investigations, Hermes turned himself into custody not long after the incident. He remains in custody at an area jail on a $1 million bond.
An alarming case. Ike Ajachi, thank you. Now to the decision by the Trump administration against Medicare and Medicaid covering the cost of popular weight loss drugs to treat obesity. ABC's Rena Roy has the details. Rena, good morning.
Whit, good morning to you. That's right. This could have implications for the millions of Americans living with obesity who rely on Medicare and Medicaid. The Trump administration announcing they will not expand coverage for weight loss medications. That means those GLP-1 drugs like Zepbound and Wegovy will not be covered to treat obesity under federal Medicare and Medicaid plans. Now, in November of last year, President Biden had proposed coverage begin in 2025, but the current administration has chosen not to move forward for now. This coverage could have helped many people With about 150 million Americans enrolled in Medicaid and Medicare, millions of them have been diagnosed with obesity. It could have also lowered costs for those with private insurance due to competitive pricing. But look, this could change down the line. CMS telling ABC they may consider covering these drugs in the future, pending further review of costs and benefits. Gio.
So Rena, when you're talking about obesity and treating obesity, is there any other way for Medicare and Medicaid patients to get those drugs covered?
Yeah, absolutely. Some state Medicaid programs have chosen to augment the federal program and offer coverage. You can see 13 of them have done that as of August of last year, and more could soon join that list. Guys.
We know this could impact so many people, Rena. Thank you for your reporting.
March Madness, it is at a fever pitch right now. Thrilling games overnight to set up the men's college basketball championships, while the women's title game is just hours away. ABC's Faith Abube is in Tampa, Florida, ahead of all the action. Faith, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Whit. On the women's side, South Carolina, UConn, they will battle it out on this court in this arena in front of a sold-out crowd in just a matter of hours. But last night, the attention was on the men. 2 thrilling games with remarkable upsets.
Incredible rally.
This morning, the men's NCAA championship is set.
A furious comeback to knock off Duke and advance to the national championship game.
In a thrilling fight to the finish, Houston making an epic comeback against the Blue Devils to clinch its first spot in the title game in 4 decades.
Spin, fake, lefty, good, and a foul.
Duke appearing to be on the road to an easy victory, up 14 points with 8 minutes on the clock.
Houston has gone cold. They've missed 7 of their last 8. Cryer puts an end to the drought.
But Houston not giving up. Guard L.J. Cryer sparking a 10-0 run in the second half. Duke still leading by 6 points with around 30 seconds on the clock.
Sharp, the jumper, he's got it!
Until a stunning turnaround by the Cougars. Houston forward Joanne Roberts clinching the lead with these 2 free throws.
Houston is in the driver's seat.
And L.J. Cryer sealing the deal with another 2.
Second one for Cryer. So poised.
Cooper Flagg and the Blue Devils trying to get back on top, but facing a heartbreaking 70-67 loss.
As long as there's time on the clock, we're going to go out there and give it our all. You know, we just had to keep that belief and keep faith, and we got it done.
Now it's a battle of the 1 seeds for the national title. Houston set to face the Florida Gators, who also earned their victory in a tight battle overnight, defeating the Auburn Tigers 79-73.
And it's over! A return to national prominence for the Gators.
Senior Walter Clayton Jr. putting on a stellar performance, scoring more than 30 points for the 2nd game in a row, a feat no other player has achieved in the Elite 8 and Final 4 since Larry Bird nearly 5 decades ago.
The guys around me making plays allows me for my game to open up, and I appreciate them.
A lot of excitement, a lot of heartbreak. The attention now turning to the women, South Carolina versus UConn. We'll see who takes home that championship title today. And all the action will be right here on ABC News starting at 3 o'clock this afternoon. And guys, I know you saw that.
Who was on the receiving end?
We did, but where'd it go?
Yeah. We wanted to see you take the half-court shot.
You don't want to know where that went.
Faith, thank you. How's your bracket, Whit?
Busted. Officially busted. Yeah,
right.
Not going to win. That's all right.
You were talking a big game.
I sure was. Yeah, always next year.
R.I.P. to that
After
bracket.
3 decades of failure. Yeah, maybe another one.
All right, coming up here on Good Morning America, ESPN's Andrea Carter joins us to preview the matchups and the possible team strategies.
Yes, and tariff breakdown, what President Trump's surcharges on foreign products will mean to your wallet.
And our countdown to the big Season 3 finale tonight of the hit series White Lotus. Everybody talking about what's going to happen. We'll have much more ahead right here on GMA.
Ready? Because there's no going back.
Welcome back to GMA. On this Sunday morning, we are getting our first glimpse of the trailer for the much-awaited Tron Ares. The Tron Legacy sequel shows Jared Leto's Ares, who is sent from the digital world into the real world, fleeing from police on a light cycle Janae knows something about the life cycle. I'll explain. The trailer also gives us a first listen at the new music for the movie by Nine Inch Nails. Tron Ares is set to open in theaters in October. To explain,
please provide some context.
Janae and I did the Tron ride at Disney World
that's right.
like 5 times in a row.
And Mama's stomach couldn't really take it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We got off the last time.
Thank you.
Janae's like, great ride, guys. I'll see you later.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
All right, let's take a look at some of the other big stories we're following here on this Sunday morning.
Department of Justice immigration lawyer has been placed on administrative leave after he expressed frustration in front of a judge ruling over a mistaken deportation case this week. Attorney General Pam Bondi saying any DOJ attorney who doesn't stand up for the government will, quote, face consequences.
And Pope Francis surprising the crowd at the Vatican this morning in Rome, the pontiff making his first public appearance since being released from the hospital after being treated for more than a month for double pneumonia.
All right, glad to see him doing better. And we are going to start this half hour here with a closer look at how tariffs are going to affect you and your wallet. We've got team coverage examining when they set in, how soon that you'll see the effects there, and steps you can take in the middle of some of this uncertainty. We're going to start with Jay O'Brien now, looking at the tariffs and their timing. Good morning again, Jay.
Yeah, Gio, good morning again. There are a lot of tariffs already in place and more set to begin in just days. 10% across the board tariffs targeting hundreds of countries and covering most goods imported into the U.S. went into effect at midnight yesterday, remember. Those were what the administration says are just the baseline tariffs, hitting a long list of countries and territories. Also, Trump's 25% tariff on all imported cars and car parts, that's already in effect. And there's already a 20% tariff on Chinese goods. China already hitting back on that with its own 34% tariff on U.S. imports. But the next date to watch here is April 9th. That's when those specific steeper tariffs will snap into place, targeting more than 50 countries that the administration says have an imbalanced trade relationship with the U.S. That includes additional tariffs on China, plus on Vietnam and the European Union and more. And it's those tariffs that most economists warn could drive some of the largest price hikes here. So the big question, will any of these tariffs be softened or stalled because of ongoing trade negotiations, as the president has done in the past, Janae?
That certainly is a big question. Another big question top of mind here is when these increased tariffs will affect prices, and Zareen Shaw is looking at that. Hey, Zareen.
Janae, for some things, potentially very soon. You'll likely see the impact from tariffs on fresh produce the fastest because it goes bad very quickly. One example is bananas. We get a large number from Guatemala, or grapes. Many are imported from Peru, and both countries now face a 10% tariff. Grocery stores are telling me they are still trying to assess how to absorb or pass on the cost. Other food products with longer shelf life, like chocolate and cheese and alcohol, will likely see price hikes within the next 3 months or possibly sooner. I spoke to a cheese shop owner nearby who started crying when I called her. She said they've already pre-bought some cheese and made commitments to farms in Europe going into 2028. She says they will absorb some costs, but consumers might see price changes in about 3 weeks' time. She says she does not know if she will remain open in the near future. For appliances and clothing, expect to see changes within the next 4 to 6 months, just ahead of back-to-school shopping. When it comes to electronics, it's going to depend on how much of the tariffs major companies will absorb or pass on to the consumer. I spoke to one mom-and-pop clothing store owner who gets all of her shipments from abroad, who told me she was in crisis mode, and it feels like the COVID era all over again for her business. Many items she will pass on the cost to consumers, but she fears she will lose buyers to cheaper stores or places that can absorb the costs. For the price of cars, you'll likely start to see that shift in the next 1 to 2 months, but experts are advising that if you can, buy now or repair your car sooner than later.
Some really difficult decisions here. Zareen, thank you. Now to Alexis Christoforous for some ideas on what people can do as they consider the impact on their finances here. Alexis?
Look, guys, all this talk of tariffs and higher prices may be tempting you all to run out and start to stockpile up on essentials like toothpaste and toilet paper. Look, if that gives you peace of mind and you can both afford it and you have the storage space for it, experts say it's not a bad idea. Economists say the tariffs could increase prices for everyday items and cost the average family of four an extra $7,200 a year. Wow. But while making some purchases now may make sense, experts are warning against panic buying, especially if you're strapped for cash. Experts say you don't want to take on new debt to buy something now because you're trying to avoid possibly paying more later. They recommend prioritizing your spending. While you can't control prices, you can control what you buy. So if you don't really need that new TV or refrigerator right now, it may be best to wait. Economists say it's important to remember here these tariffs are most likely not permanent. President Trump has said he's open to negotiations. Some of these tariff rates could be lowered in the coming weeks, even rolled back altogether.
Important. No panic buying, right? If you can avoid it. Also, the news of the tariffs really rattled the stock market. How should people be thinking about that in all of this?
It's hard, right? But you don't want to make your emotions sort of guide your decisions. If you pull money out of a retirement fund or a college plan early, you can get hit with some big penalties. And if you need to tap that money in the next year or so, analysts say you may want to consider moving it into less volatile investments like bonds, at least some of it, or hold on to a little bit more cash. And if you don't need the money for a few years, these dramatic sell-offs can be a buying opportunity. You know, there's a saying, it's not about timing the market, but about time in the market. And over the years, that has proven to be true.
Absolutely. I am so glad we did this. Such helpful information. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Alexis J. Zareen. We so appreciate it all.
With White Lotus fans flocking to their TVs tonight for the big season 3 finale, hoping to see those loose ends tied up about their favorite storylines.
That's all three of us.
All three of us. Viewership for the series hit new highs last season, and White Lotus fan fanatic Will Gans is here with how that's expected to be top tonight.
Oh my gosh, yeah, get ready for a little more of that. If you've been walking around the last few weeks just saying to yourself, tsunami, Buddhism, Piper, no. You're not alone. In fact, this season of The White Lotus could total 20 million viewers in total, but it all ends tonight.
With just hours to go until the White Lotus season finale, anxiety is at an all-time high.
When are you taking my lorazepams?
The hit series everyone is talking about, known for its theme song, exotic locations, and juicy plot lines.
You think he's dangerous? I mean, he killed his wife.
The show is also a meme-making machine on social media.
Piper, no! And you're telling me you want to become a Buddhist?
It's a tsunami of people.
With many asking, is this the return of appointment television? Maybe, as the show breaks viewership records, averaging 15 million viewers this season. Driven in part by online discourse, with fans bent on solving TV's biggest whodunit and who's dying. No spoilers here, but certain theories are spiking in searches on TikTok upwards of 1,000% this week.
We are days away from the White Lotus finale, so we need to get serious about our theories. Let's flow.
One mystery that's already been solved: cast salaries. Producers confirming to The Hollywood Reporter they're all the same, $40,000 an episode, totaling $320,000 for the 8-episode season.
Friends also had a similar ensemble cast. It's the far cry from $1 million. The whole budget per episode for this show was $4 million, which is really small compared to most TV productions.
Producers telling the magazine it's not negotiable, adding, you're getting people who want to do the project for the right reasons.
Mike White is kind of a genius and is known for coming up with content that people love and has a great big following. And people want to work with him.
Piper, no. All right, so the good news is that tonight's season finale is 90 minutes long, but the bad news, Charlotte Levon, who plays Chloe this season, says she thinks people are going to hate Mike White when they see how it all goes down tonight.
Really?
Does everyone die?
Maybe because of a tsunami.
That is a theory. We need the whiteboard.
Yes.
Okay. Bust out the whiteboard. I know. This is like me all day long on TikTok.
Good content.
Well, I'll be texting like crazy, Will.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. All right, coming up here on Good Morning America, the men's and women's NCAA championships are all set. ESPN's Andrea Carter looks at who may have the edge.
We're back now at GMA with the NCAA basketball championships finally here. The women's tournament to be decided tonight, followed by the men's tomorrow. And our friend ESPN's Andrea Carter is here with a preview. Andrea, good morning to you. Let's jump right into it here because the start with the women. UConn's Paige Beckers has been outstanding, now one game away from her championship dream. What makes her so special as a player?
So many things make Paige Bueckers incredibly special. She is moving up the charts when it comes to UConn legends, and they are the best of the best. But for Paige, it's the way she makes winning plays. We've seen her in this tournament score 30 points, 40 points, put up big-time buckets, and then she gets in the game against UCLA, and it's her defense that makes a difference. It's her closeouts, it's her energy, it's the defensive end and the steals. Paige Bueckers does whatever it takes to win, and so far in this tournament, it looks like she is not going to be denied. She is a true superstar and leader for the UConn squad.
Superstar player, seems like a pretty good person too, Andrea. South Carolina lost to UConn earlier this season. What do they need to do differently this time to try to win it all?
Well, there are a lot of X's and O's that I could get into as far as different things that they need to look at, because UConn really dominated that game, right? For South Carolina, defensively, they have to clean up being disruptive on the defensive end. And then offensively, they've got to have chemistry and be connected. But South Carolina's word for this tournament has been believe. And that, to me, is the biggest key for this South Carolina team. They're the reigning champions, but they're coming in as the underdog. Tahina Paopao, she has been telling the team, believe. That's their word. They have to hold on to that for sure in this matchup.
Okay, bringing in a little Ted Lasso.
Right?
Yeah, 100%.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Be a goldfish.
Believe, absolutely.
Not mad at it.
Hey, Andrea, let's talk about the men. We got Florida, my Florida against Houston. What's going on? What do you see? What do you need to see from these teams?
I love this matchup. In particular reasons, both teams are led by dynamic guards. Clayton Jr. for Florida and LJ Cryer for Houston. But I love how these teams got here. Florida is a team that, especially last season, they were known for their elite offense, and they added defense this season. They wanted to be a stronger defensive team. Now they're playing for a national championship. Houston is a program that has been known for their defense. That is what they have hung their hat on. And Houston this season made it a point to add offense. They wanted three-point shooting. They wanted to be able to score the basketball better than ever before. So both teams have transformed their programs, and it's paid off. And we get a matchup of two elite, tough, physical programs that should be fun to watch, and I'm ready for it, guys.
Oh, yes, you are.
Catch that
right.
ball, yes.
And since we're out of time, we won't mention that you had Duke going all the way, but that's all right.
Wait, see, I gotta go. I gotta get out of here. I'll see you guys later.
You're
I'm
the
out of
best.
here.
Thank you. You can catch NCAA Women's Basketball National Championship 3 Eastern today on ABC.
Thanks for starting your day with us, Gio. You're excited about next weekend.
That's right. I'll be joining you from D.C. from the National Cherry Blossoms Parade. I'm going to be co-hosting that parade for WJLA. And check this out.
You got some stuff for us.
Yeah, I got you some stuff. How about that for your girl?
Yeah.
Janae, look at this beautiful hat you got. A Schmedium shirt for you.
Oh,
Why
yeah.
not? And how about this?
Suns up, guns
You
up.
keep us chilly. So there you go. Bye, everybody. Hope to see you next week and tomorrow morning on GMA.